From education to gentrification to the old Naval Hospital, I speak exclusively with North Charleston mayoral candidate Thomas Dixon for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Listen to this interview tomorrow on my free Quintin's Close-Ups iHeartRadio podcast. And of course, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Pastor Thomas Dixon.
My good friend.
How are you?
Quintin Washington. It's an honor and a privilege to be back here on Quintin's Close-Ups, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, anytime. You're welcome.
Absolutely.
I'm bringing you back because obviously you are running for North Charleston mayor, and I know your campaign is in progress right now.
Yes, sir.
What is that progress?
My campaign is a little bit different than a normal political campaign.
Okay.
My campaign is my life. This is the things that I'm campaigning on are the things that I've been championing and fighting for in Low Country for a long time. Better wages, ending gun violence, quality education, ending gentrification, accessible housing. You know, these are the same things I've been talking about for a long time. So as far as an actual campaign, my platform is my life. And anyone that wants to know about the platform specifically, I have a website, Dixon.com, Dixon4mayor.com, the number 4. And there's a pretty extensive, I didn't go with the short, they always encourage you to have little short bites of information on the websites. I wanted to give people an understanding about just where I'm at. And the other side of that coin is anybody really wants to know about Pastor Dixon, Dixon for Mayor, what I do, I'll encourage you, Google me.
Google you.
Google me. And you'll see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, when people Google affordable housing, gentrification, and quality education in North Charleston, what will they pull up in your mind?
Well, they're going to pull up a model of a template that's been put in the place across our nation in order to claim neighborhoods that just happen to be in the right proximity in order to better the economic condition of cities. Many of the cities across our nation started with a core, with a central area that was predominantly white, and on the outskirts of that area the workers lived, which happened to be people of color. That way they could always transit in. But as the cities grew, as the city of Charleston grew, it enveloped the black community. It began to envelop the black community. And unscrupulous and greedy people decided that, okay, instead of allowing those people to stay there, what we need to do is we need to move them out so we can get that property back and then redevelop it so we can make massive amounts of money off of it. People, unfortunately, are expendable when it comes to those who the love of money has taken hold of. So with gentrification in this area, we saw the gentrification that happened in the city of Charleston. It went from, I believe, right around 1978 or 1980 when Mayor Riley took office. The city was approximately 75% African American. When we left there, it was down to 25% African American. So it went from 75% African American to 25% African American in that 40-year period due to gentrification that people forced out. Now we see massive growth and development and unaffordable housing and hotels and all of these things in the places that used to be the homes and the property and the wishes and the dreams of the African American community that lived there and had lived there for generations. The same movement in the city of Charleston, I believe, is the same plan that's coming to the city of that's happening in the city of North Charleston. That same reclamation of neighborhoods that are predominantly African American, poor and African American, in order to redevelop it, those neighborhoods into unaccessible or unaffordable housing for those that live there. Where those people are supposed to go? Well, the city plan, I don't believe, has any concern for that. Just as in the city of Charleston, it had no concern about where those people are supposed to go. And that part of it, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. We have people who have lived in their homes and on their property and in their communities and their neighborhoods for decades, and built those homes and bought those homes with dreams for their families and for their futures. But because of lack of funding within those communities, lack of resources within those communities, allowing the educational system to implode within itself in those communities, all the influx of guns and drugs in those communities, all these things have devalued the entire community, the attitude of the community, the future of the community, the hope of the community, to a point where the people are hopeless now. The city can come in through various means of purchasing properties, and they buy, sell, redevelop, and buy low, redevelop, and sell high. Basically, that's what we're looking at in North Charleston, just as it happened in Charleston, unless there's some stopgaps put in place. One being the fact that we need to replace our current mayor, who after 25 years has been just as much a part of this, I'm going to call it a transformation, but it's not a good transformation. It's a transformation that walks on people, and people are the last to be taken care of in it.
You talked about obviously properties being revalued and whatnot, and as far as gentrification, why don't you think they could have done it under the African American community? Aren't there African Americans out there that are just as successful and rich as the other folks are?
Yes, there are. But unfortunately, they don't reside in those communities that are wanted, in the communities where they're wanted. That's why the cities reclaim those properties, are claiming those properties. Actually, when there are other areas where they could actually build, and that would be just as accessible for those, the well-to-do, the middle to upper class. But they would much rather, because our communities, with that growth thing, our communities wound up in great proximity to the metropolitan areas, such as say like with the south end of North Charleston, abutting I-26, which is a direct flow right into the city of Charleston. And those who want to move into this area, it's more attractive for them to be able to move into a community that sits right there at I-26, where all of the business aspect of the city of Charleston is accessible, access to the beaches of Mount Pleasant or Sullivan's Island, Folly Beach, and all of that. It's a lot easier than them commuting in from, say, Somerville or Goose Creek and have to deal with those the traffic issues and things of that sort. So why not get this close spot? And they're willing to pay. They're willing to pay. So as far as other African Americans, that I think I'm understanding the question. You know, you're not asking about African Americans being involved in this development, are you?
No, I mean, obviously they dominated this many areas for many years,
Right.
and then being now pushed out by some, as you say, gentrification. Why can't the city work with them and allow them to keep their properties versus pushing them out?
I'm really glad that you asked that you clarified, because this city does not want to do that. You see, once we have a mindset about a group of people that does not place value in that people, then we can consider them as expendable. It's unfortunate that if we throw back a couple of hundred years, the development of the mindset that black people were less than human anyway, that we were 3/5 of a human, and that post-Reconstruction, that mindset was impressed on white communities and white America. That it's part of, I believe, a part of the subconscious mind for many now. So when these communities, black communities, get in the way of making money, that less than human aspect comes in. Why should I treat them? Why should I help them up when I can move them out and make money? You see, it's all about capitalism. It's all about the dollar. And it's the same capitalism that existed 400 years ago that brought millions of slaves to South Carolina, right through our port right here. And in many ways, the mindset of those who are in control are still the mindset of the master. And unfortunately, because of the way that we've allowed our communities, without fighting back, to implode on themselves, and we've accepted it in many ways, it's the same mindset of the slave for those in our community.
Now, you talked earlier about those stopgaps. How many more stopgaps would you like to put in place for the city of North Charleston now that you're running for mayor, on if you become mayor?
I'd like to, well, when I become mayor, I'd like to make sure that the gentrification that is in place right now is curbed. Unfortunately, I'm certain that after 25 years in this position, a lot of what's happening is going to happen. So my becoming mayor this year will be a matter of damage control. Okay, so I'll have to get in and try to slow the gentrification process by creatively bringing ways for those that already reside in our area to maintain the properties they have and enrich those properties, while making sure that any new development has housing that's accessible for those who would like to live there, those who might not be able to afford a $500,000 or $250,000 home, or payment or whatever. A lot of this, one of the stop gaps would be that we need to increase the economic base within North Charleston for the underserved, for the poor. North Charleston right now, having 47% African Americans and another 12% Latinos, and is the largest financial draw of any city in our state, but it maintains itself at 50% higher than the national poverty level. So if 59% of the population is people of color, and we're 50% higher than the national poverty level, who's broke in North Charleston? Those that 60%, that 59% are the ones that are not making enough money really even to survive off of. So we have to level the playing field there, so even when we have accessible housing, that people will be able to buy into that. We have to give people hope by providing them with the ability to realize the American dream, to be able to buy and to afford. So as we build into the gentrification, or the projects of gentrification, let me back that off. As we build into the construction that's happening, that's causing gentrification, we need to make sure that there's opportunity for everyone that wants to live in these, that they're not priced out of the people. The people are our greatest commodity. Anytime that America cuts people short, which is done since its inception, anytime that we do that, we're actually going against the natural order of things. People are our greatest commodity, and we need to respect and treat our people with respect. Right now, that's not happening.
Oh, yikes. Oh, yeah, that'd be great right there. But let me talk to you more about housing. Obviously, there's different definitions of it right now. You just mentioned accessible housing. There's affordable housing, and there's workforce housing, and there's attainable housing. What is it now?
It depends on who you're talking to, okay? Because many people like to talk about affordable housing, but really what's affordable for one person does not necessarily have to be affordable for the next. If I'm making $100,000 a year, I can afford $1,500 a month,
Okay.
$2,000 a month. I can afford that, especially if I have a partner that's working too. I can afford that. But if I'm making $18,000 a month, if I'm making $20,000 a year, if I'm making $20,000 a year, there's no way I can pay $2,000 a month. So what's affordable for the $100,000 a month person, a year person, is not affordable for the $20,000 annual person. And you take somebody that's making $500,000 a year, what's affordable for them is not even affordable for the $100,000 person. So affordable housing is not a realistic term. I use the term accessible housing because we need to ensure that no matter what the economic bracket a person is, that they have access to quality housing. And the housing has to be equitable. So in other words, just because a person is not in the $500,000 annual range, the $100,000 annual range, that doesn't mean that we can't build in a scale within that and bring in some subsidies in order to make sure that that person that's at that $18,000 annual level will have access to housing also. We can do that. We can do that. It's being done in other cities.
Okay.
And the problem why it's not being done here is because we don't want to do that. We don't have the right people in place who want to do it. Gentrification, the problem has been diagnosed, and the solutions have already been put in place in other cities. But the leadership in those cities made a conscious decision that before they moved forward, they were going to consider the people of all economic levels before they started moving forward. So they built in mechanisms in order to make sure that the people had access to housing that was attainable for them. So there's another one of those words, none of those terms, that was attainable for them, for those who want to work and have a part in the American dream.
Now, if you were mayor today, what would those subsidiaries look like?
There are quite a few areas that right now I'm not going to touch on. Okay, just right now I'm not going to touch on. But there are areas that have been, rent control is one.
Okay.
Rent control is one. And there's other voucher systems and things of that sort. But I'm not going to get too deep off into that area. And mainly because as I've progressed through this campaign, I've seen that this campaigning is kind of cutthroat. It's kind of cutthroat. So the more that you put out, sometimes you have to be kind of specific about or with discretionary about what you put out. Okay.
Now, earlier you talked about the south end of North Charleston. I was just over there, just walking from East Montague all the way down Spruill to Rivers Avenue, and obviously you can see the old Naval Hospital in the distance. When you look at the old Naval Hospital right now, what do you tell yourself?
I tell myself that I'm angry about the old Naval Hospital because we had an opportunity, and we still have that opportunity. Only thing is more costly now. But we had an opportunity with the Naval Hospital to really do something vital to help our community out, to enrich our community. When the base closed and then it was allowed to use the hospital for a while until it finally closed and sold to the city of North Charleston. That was a sale that went for $2 million, which a building of that quality, I mean, it's a huge building. Of course, there's an asbestos problem in it now that's been found out, but the entire structure was there. And at $2 million in the original purchase, what's been found out that it would take $60 million or so to fix the asbestos problem in it. Well, we could have spent the original $2 million and then invested the other, 58, 60 million in it in order to bring it up to speed. Now, why would you want to do that? The physical location of that building and the structure in it, that building should have been a place where we could have designated several floors out in order to house our homeless population as we pick them up on the street, to at least offer them a place to come to. Where they could live on the lower floors. We could have had all of the services needed in order to help them up. Labor services, alcohol and drug services, veterans affairs on that floor. All of the services it would take for anyone to be able to be a success. We could have had probation, pardon, and parole on that service. Basically a one-stop shop for services for the entire area, and not just Charleston County, but Dorchester and Berkeley County. And of course, in doing that, the three counties could also share in the cost for the building, as well as the services that would be provided. But several of the floors could be allotted for battered women's shelter, with a security access elevator, and to set a small police substation within the building in order to make sure everything. The homeless thing could have been a couple of floors for men, a couple of floors for women, a couple of floors for families. Well, we take them there and offer education for the children right there in that facility. Just a centralized location. We could have rerouted the bus from the super stop that's right now on Cosgrove and Rivers to turn right around there up under the shelter of the hospital. So anybody that needed access once we improved Carter that would have been that turnaround spot. So anywhere in the Tri-County area that people needed to come for whatever services, they could have come right there to that one building and been served. This could have been up and running years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, had the vision for it been there. But instead, North Charleston and its mayor purchased the building for $2 million and turned around and sold it for $3 million profit, $5 million. And it's still idle, and it's still not being used. You see, when the focus is on the people, when the focus is on the betterment of the community, we can come up with constructive ideas in order to help the people of the community. Instead of us sitting around pointing fingers at the homeless, what we would do is we would provide a hand up for the homeless, those who would be able to come in and move forward within that facility. You know, it's such a unique place, a unique space, that in the renovation could have included solar panels. Okay, so we're environmentally sound. It could have included an acre or so of that ground could be set aside for fresh farming, so that for those that are housed in there, they have fresh vegetables and everything right there, fresh fruits, and that are farmed right on the property. And the barracks area that was right there could have been renovated and offered to the employees at a very reduced rate of rent, and they just get up in the morning and walk over to the hospital to go to work. You see, rerouting Carter right through there, it would have been a win-win situation. Instead of having to pay Donald Trump Jr. and his partner Jeremy Blackburn, the county had to pay $30-some-odd million. We never would have had that problem had the vision up front been there. And a good business person, a good-minded business person would stop and say, I bought this huge building for $2 million. What is the best that I can do with this building other than sell it for $5 million? What can I do especially from a mayor's position, where the focus is always on how I'm going to better and enrich my community. Seems like at that $2 million purchase, the first thought would have been, what can I do in order to enrich my community with this building?
How do you enrich the South End of North Charleston now? Because obviously they're in need of a grocery store and other necessities. What's that betterment for them right now in your mind?
We have to turn the situation over first off to let the community know that they have somebody that's working for them in City Hall. That has not been happening. What's been happening over the last year? I've been seeing a lot of things happen in the last year that have not happened with the mayor's office in City Hall. There's a lot of movement. I don't know. I guess the mayor knows it's an election this year, but the people on that end deserve better. It's been for years a poverty mentality has been sown into them. Looking at the blighted communities, looking at the fact that they don't have grocery stores available, looking at the fact that the schools in their community are termed failing schools, and that terminology has been accepted not only by the community but by our city government and the school district. Looking at all of those variables, we have a group of people, a segment of people on the South End who have really lost hope in their existence. they don't see the bigger aspect of the American dream because it's been deprived of them. So to be able to put that back into that, there's no reason why we can't have a full-fledged grocery store on that end. And to say, well, they're not going to. One thing I will guarantee. Okay. I will guarantee that once the gentrification in that area turns over, the grocery store will be there. Okay. That's why we need to get somebody in office who's going to move the grocery store in there, in order to make sure that the people that are in the community already are continue to be enriched health-wise and things of that sort. Improved schools, improving the educational quality there, so that as this gentrification moves, as those well-to-do folks want to move into there, they're moving in a community where the people are already set to stay in that community, not to be moved out, not to be displaced.
What is your hope in the Charleston County School District and its educational system right now?
My hope is that we will replace the board of directors, the board of trustees, especially all of those that have been there. It's crazy, Quintin. It is crazy. I don't understand this system at all that has put the same people back in office who have allowed a superintendent to have a failing track record, but still be employed. I worked a few jobs, but before, anytime I didn't perform on my job, I was terminated. But we have a superintendent of schools, our greatest charge being our children, who has a track record of failure. And we continue to allow her to stay in place. The board of trustees continues to allow her to stay in place. And as a matter of fact, it really does seem that they're promoting that. Our school system in North Charleston, with the failing schools that are there, worse than South Carolina, makes no kind of sense. We're spending the lion's share of tax dollars in North Charleston that goes into the Charleston County School District. That money goes to fund schools in Mount Pleasant and everywhere else other than North Charleston.
Why is that?
One of the reasons why I believe is that we have a mayor that allows it. You got to understand, in this process of gentrification, it's incumbent on these communities to fail. And one way to fail a community is to allow the schools to fail. So you never see the mayor championing the cause of our children. I've never seen him say a word or come to a board meeting or anything to say, you need to fix our schools. Why are schools failing? We give you all of this money in tax money. Why are our schools failing? As a matter of fact, not why. You're getting ready to turn this thing around. You're either going to fix our schools or we're going to stop paying the taxes to it. Why are we going to keep pumping money into a failing system? But I've never seen the mayor take that bull by the horns. Why? Because I believe, and this is a personal opinion, that part of the plan, the gentrification plan, is to allow the schools to fail, because failing schools are part of a failing neighborhood in the community that ultimately is gentrification right. So I think that even though the mayor does not have, and let me be clear about it, doesn't have any jurisdiction within the school district, none whatsoever, but that's one heck of a bully pulpit. And so I will tell the school district right now, look at this camera and say so, I will tell the school district right now, do what you're going to do right now. Because after I win this election in November, the mayor's coming to the school board meeting and coming regularly until my city is taken care of, and my children, the children in my city, are taken care of. And we will no longer have failing schools in North Charleston. They either fix them or we stop giving them money.
Now, let me stay in North Charleston. Obviously, Garrett High School is going to be closing down next year. What, in your mind, should the Charleston County School District do with that particular property?
I don't believe they should close it. That's the first thing. There are other things that can be done. It's been said right now that they're talking about expanding Meeting Street.
Okay.
You know, which to me is not a viable answer. Let me just go from my standard point of view. Choice schools, for whomever wants choice schools, okay, go right ahead. My focus is always going to be on the public education, a quality public education. But in order to have a quality public education, it has to be fully funded. It has to be vested interest by our board and by our school district. Things that have stopped happening in North Charleston schools. Garrett could remain as Garrett with the expanded opportunity for trades, with an expanded definition on trades, and be that neighborhood school there where we can be producing the workforce for the future. Right now, we have such a sad situation when it comes to our workforce that companies like Boeing and everything, they're importing people. It makes no sense. Why haven't our schools been training our children to move into those positions, to move into those managerial positions? When it comes to the entrepreneurial spirit, there could be an amazing vehicle there in order to promote entrepreneurship. In every aspect of the training, how to build a business, how to develop a business plan, how to present it, what does it look like to be a businessman? How do you handle your taxes? How do you deal with insurances? All of these aspects could be taught up under that one roof. But instead of doing it, they're saying, no, we can just shut it down. We can just shut it down. But the community, it's amazing because the community doesn't want that to happen. And I talk to the people in the community. The people in the community want the school to stay open. And unfortunately, once again, with Garrett, we have the same situation as we have in other schools. That it's the lack of putting funding into it that the school district doesn't do. The school district funds these other schools, and if there was just equity, in the treatment of the schools, we would not have this problem. Now, Garrett was not a failing school. No, it's not among the failing schools. Just as Prestige Preparatory Academy is not among the failing schools. As a matter of fact, Prestige was doing better than, I'm sure that the school board, the school district, and the board, thought that they were going to do.
What is the misinformation about this right now?
About Prestige?
Yes, sir.
The misinformation is that the finger has been pointed and the information has been put out that Prestige Preparatory is a failing school and it's an alternative school for bad children, which it's not. It's neither failing nor an alternative school for bad children. It's an all-male school similar to Urban Prep in Chicago, similar to the school that LeBron James opened up. Very similar. It's all male. It just happens to be all African American males, but that's not what it's set up for. The only reason why it's African American males is because the other populations haven't sent their young boys to it. The other ethnicities, the Latino community and the white community, have not sent their children there. Since before opening, Principal Coleman there has been fighting with this board, with the school board, about opening and being able to stand in opening. There have been pitfalls placed in her way. So when the finger is pointed at her, it's like anything else that we do. If we don't have adequate support in what we try to do, then the chances of failure are very high. But in spite of those high chances of failure, Ms. Coleman has succeeded. Whereas other schools in the district fall below the success line for the levels, her children are higher. Her school is higher, but still they say we're going to close you down. Well, you're leaving quote unquote failing schools open, but you want to take a school that's not failing and shut it down. When it came to transportation, one of the primary reasons why she had trouble in the beginning was because of transportation. They had transportation when they opened up. They had trouble with the bus, and were never able to recover from that first year. And that caused a snowball effect into the next year because the funding for the school, first off, without the bus, children were not able to get there. So her enrollment dropped rapidly. And then the funding for the following year is based on the enrollment in that final quarter of the previous year. So when her enrollment dropped, the funding for the next year was based on the numbers after that drop. So she opened up the next year at a loss.
Okay.
And basically has been trying to dig out of the hole ever since. Now, I can't say that it's all the fault, and I'm not going to say it's all the fault of the school district. What I will say is that there are other avenues, I do believe, that can be explored by the school administration, by Ms. Goldman and the school administration, also to assist in the funding process. But to not have your main source of strength, the one that schools should be able to rely on, stepping up to the plate, that's extremely discouraging. Extremely discouraging. And the question is, and I guess the discouragement is why? Why? Why is it that Prestige Preparatory cannot get the help from the school district in order to survive, in order to thrive? And I don't have any logical reasons for it. I mean, I've heard about situations where school buildings have been allowed to be used for $1 a year. But when Ms. Goldman wanted to go over to Garrett, the first thing was they asked about $65,000 from a school and a person that they knew did not have that economic ability. So sometimes we just have to look at the situation as it is. So the reality is that school is not failing. It's not a school for bad kids. As a matter of fact, she's doing some amazing things with those young men there. And if allowed to continue on, I'm sure that great things will happen at that school. That's my own personal opinion.
How much does the school district charge the teacher's closet to be at Garrett?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Mm-hmm.
You talked earlier about your business plan.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a voter sitting right next to you, how would you present your business plan for the future of the city of North Charleston if you were to be mayor today?
A business plan. Let me give you the quick spiel on me in North Charleston, okay? Right now we have a city. It's the third largest city in South Carolina. And although it's the third largest city in South Carolina and actually draws in the most finances in the state of South Carolina, we have an educational system that is not educating our children. We have people who are continuously working for slave wages. And we have a crime rate that is off the chain. We have very little emphasis on environmental safety and environmental justice. And it's time now, though, for this city to embrace the people of the city and to take care of the people of the city, from the least of these to the greatest of these. There's no reason why 59% of the population in North Charleston should be suffering, especially after being under somebody for 25 years and their lives have not gotten better, it's gotten worse. So, business plan. A couple of things that we're going to do. One is we're going to increase, instead of not just at City Hall, and I'm going to touch on that again, City Hall, the minimum wages, right? Wages. The slave wage thing has got to stop. And it's going to stop in North Charleston. It's one thing I'm formally, 3 out of the last 4 years, I was the chair for the Charleston Alliance for Fair Employment. It was formerly the Carolina Alliance for Fair Employment. And I've been involved with the fight for 15 a long time. And I understand the dynamics of it, that those who make the least in our nation spend the most money. So people that make $7.25 an hour, the minimum wage, which is a whole lot of jobs in North Charleston, they spend all of that, all $7.25 of that. But if we find a way to increase that to $15, which we can do, because other cities have done it and have successfully done it, then those same low-wage earners are going to spend more money, basically increasing our base, our economic base within the city, building the economic base further from the bottom up, because there's more. Our people will have the opportunity to save something. Ray and Pookie and them out on the block, who are taking the chance with their lives, and they're as far as being in the dope game and everything. I know them boys because I used to be them boys. But having been in prison, I know that many of them would opt to take a job that paid them a decent rate of pay as opposed to selling dope. I know it. We could build our community from the bottom up and give people hope by increasing wages. Now, in the city with the city workers at the city of North Charleston, they just received, I think they just got up to their $15 an hour this year. The mayor and the city council said we need to give them a raise a couple of years ago. So incrementally they increased up from whatever their rate of pay was. I think it was like $12.50 or something like that, and they increased up to $15. They just got there to $15. A little here and a little there. Now, my question in that whole procedure is this, and I'm really happy for them, but I was talking to a city employee just a couple of days ago.
Okay.
And she was a supporter of the current mayor until we had this conversation. And the conversation is, just recently the city council passed a raise, agreed to a raise for the next mayor of $17,000. Even though the current mayor received, I believe it was a $28,000 raise after the last election.
Okay.
So he just approved $17,000 more to be tacked on to the winner of this election. But it won't be incrementally. It won't be a little here and a little there. The day the next mayor is sworn in, that $17,000 will go into effect in their account. So why is it that the workers have to get a little pinch off here and a little pinch off there, but the person that runs the city gets it in a lump sum? I think we need to take care of the workers first. Let's put them as the priority. So in that whole equation, there are a lot of people who talk about, well, we can't do $15 an hour. We're going to put the small business out of business, and all of this. Entrepreneurs will go out of business. Well, we're smart enough. We know how to change out hearts in people's bodies and put people on the moon and everything. We're smart enough to know to sit to the table and factor in how not to destroy entrepreneurs and small business by this. The thing is, though, once we give more money to if our larger corporations give more money to their employees, those employees are going to start spending more money. Where are they going to start spending more money? With the entrepreneurs and with the small businesses. So over time, those businesses will have more income coming in annually. We'll set up so that they're on a tier. Once they reach a certain tier, then they have to increase their wages for their employees also. And they should ultimately, because more money is being pumped into the system at that level, they'll be able to expand their businesses and hire more people too.
What's that? I know you just laid out what you think is wrong for the city of North Charleston under the current mayor, but what is that one good thing that the mayor has done so far over the past 25 years that you can describe in one word about?
Can I use two?
Sure.
Two words. Oh wow, I had it. Is economic growth. I'm going to use that one. Economic growth or expansion, economic expansion. The way that he's built the city. And that's great. I'm not going to take that away from him. He's done, and I've said that from day one. He's done a wonderful job of building this city with the we have the airport and the expansion of the airport. We have the hotels are booming, and the tourism is booming. Although I don't agree with the methodology behind the Boeings and the Volvos and all of these companies coming here. I don't agree with the methodology because the taxpayers are actually the ones that are subsidizing their tax breaks. But he has managed to bring them here, which is good. We're going to make some slight adjustments to that tax break thing once I win this election.
What will be those adjustments?
Well, we need to hold them accountable for their fair share of the area. I mean, they use our roads too, so they should be paying for helping to pay for our roads, not having tax breaks, or take that tax breaks money and spend it back into it. They can pump money into our schools. They help our failing public schools to be success. They can actually set up employment opportunities for those that are incarcerated. Which is something I'm definitely going to sit to the table and talk to them about, because one of the things that I know about incarceration, having been there, is most of those who go into the prison system come out the same way they went in, and they come out with the mindset, I'm not coming back to prison again. I'm going to get out. I'm going to do right. I'm going to get me a job and stuff. But all these obstacles are in the way. So if we can get our major corporations to designate 1 or 2% of their hiring to people that are incarcerated, to those that are behind that wall, identify them early on and let them on the inside know, okay, we're going to put you in this program if you want to, but here's the conditions of this program. You got to stay straight while you're in here. You've got to pass this program. And the Boeing people or Volvo people or Mercedes people are going to come in and hold this and train you while you're in prison. And the day that you exit the prison system, you're going to walk into a full-time permanent job with benefits at this company with the same rate of pay as everybody else. If they would agree to that, that would be huge for those that are behind that wall, a way of hope, offering them hope for a future, and ultimately make the same communities that they live in safer for them and their children. So we have to deal with this incarceration system, the system of incarceration proactively, and we can definitely bring those who have these massive tax breaks, who have had them. They've done well. They've had enough. Let me just put it that way. They've had enough. It's time to pay up. It's time to put back into the community. And the more that they put back into the community, the safer the community is going to be, the better the community is going to be, and the more we will be as a community. We can't consider Boeing as not being a part of the community. They are the community, and that's what they present themselves at. So if you're part of the community, then pay up like everybody else.
Pastor Thomas Dixon, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Quintin. I appreciate you.
You're welcome anytime.
All right.
Yes, sir.